Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is making her second appearance on our show. Last spring, while she was busy filming her highly anticipated return as Vivian Allamain on the popular daytime drama series Days of Our Lives, she took time out from her filming schedule to grant me an interview. That interview immediately went viral and was covered by over 25 media outlets. And now, the episodes that this beloved actress was filming back in the spring are now being aired on TV. I've been inundated by thousands of fans requesting that we invite her back to our show to continue our conversation, and she has graciously agreed. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome back, by popular demand, the incomparable Louise Sorel. Louise, thank you so much for being here again.
Good morning. Or is it afternoon? I don't know.
Well, I remember when we last spoke, you said that you didn't really ever think about your popularity with the fans, but the overwhelming public reaction and media coverage after your last appearance on our show, it's got to be gratifying, isn't it?
It certainly is. And if somebody out there would like to give me a job, I'd be quite happy.
So you still want to keep working?
Well, yes, unless somebody forgot to tell me I'm retired. I don't.
Well, are you surprised that people love Vivian Allamain so much?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a long journey as Vivian, but it's so funny because I don't normally do anything other than political stuff on Facebook. But somehow or other, somebody emailed me a bunch of responses to Vivian. And some of it said, "Oh, she's back. Great." And then somebody said, "Get rid of her." And then somebody else said, "I've never liked her." I mean, I kind of find it funny because I understand why they don't. It's a monstrous character, but I'm so happy that somebody cares about it because otherwise I wouldn't have that job.
So when
So
you say you'd like a job, would you like to go back to being a regular full time?
I'm not sure about that. I really would want to go back to the theater because that's my first love.
Would
And
you
it's
ever move back to Hollywood?
no, I would go there to visit my sister. I found it after a while since I was born there. It's changed a lot. And I had a rather sad time visiting because I went back and looked at my old house that I lived in, and it was so distant. Everything was, I couldn't connect. Maybe if I lived there for a long time and my house in Malibu, I think I would go back to that if I still had it, but I don't.
So all the producers need to know that you're looking for something in the theater, but if the right role came along, a recurring role in a series, you would do it?
I would. I mean, that's called working. We're actors. That's what we like to do.
Well, when you were filming in LA, these new episodes of Days of Our Lives, you said that there had been a lot of changes in the working environment. Was filming the show more stressful than you anticipated?
Yes, but I don't want to put that blame on anyone. It's what's happened, probably financially. They have to save money and time. So everything is much faster than I had remembered it. It was always not so slow, but now it's really rapid. And actors get panicked because, it's sort of they throw the camera on you and that's it. And it's not anybody's fault. It's not the directors or anybody's. It's just the way they have to do it now. And I think most actors feel that way about it. It's we used to have period of time of rehearsals and maybe some talk about the scene, those details that actors like to have, and we can't do it.
Were you happy to be back on the set after having been away so long?
Yes, because I found a lot of new actors that I didn't know. They're all so sweet. They're all trying so hard. And I was very moved by how hard they're working. It's difficult. It's difficult, but they're happy to have the work, of course. It's a different experience now.
It's different, but not happier or better.
No, I don't like to say negative things like that. It's just a more difficult way to perform for everybody, including the directors. Everybody's rushed, and that's the way it is. So I don't want to be negative. I'm just being honest about the fact that it's more difficult for everybody. I'm sure they would admit to that.
Did you have any input into the scripts for the episodes that you filmed?
A little bit. I always have. I guess I'm known for only because I care and because I hope I have some taste. I had some things that bothered me a lot. but they were determined to have it the way it was written. And I understand that you have to respect the person that's written it and, try to do what they've asked you to do. I always have some issues that I try to maybe change or improve on, but there's not a lot of time for that. So I did what they asked me to do. Hopefully it was all right.
Well, if you could steer the storyline for your character, Vivian Allamain, what would you want her to do?
Well, oh my God. I mean, I've never thought about it except that I had once, years and years ago, I asked for some backstory because nobody is just plain evil. And I don't think she is just plain. I don't think anybody is, except for, I won't go into politics. I asked for some backstory, and this, whoever, I don't remember, so long ago, and they gave me a lovely piece of a scene with Deborah Adair when she was on the show about my history and where the damage was, because people who do these things always have been damaged in some way. And I was able to do some really lovely scenes where I was basically reflecting on things that had occurred in my life. And I think that's important for any character. It's hard because it goes in another trajectory at this point. But I would ask for some backstory before all of this happened. I think it allows people to in a little more, so you might have some concern for the character.
Do you think Vivian will be back?
I don't know. I actually have no idea. They had some issues there recently and things have changed. So there are other new people, and I don't know really what they're going to do. Maybe people will say bring her back, or somebody wrote get rid of her. So I don't know.
Have you been watching the show now that you're back on it?
Yes, and it's odd because I guess I was interspersed, and every time I turn it on, somebody calls and said, "Well, where are you?" So I actually wrote to the producer and said, "Did you just drop the story or what?" And I guess it's interlaced with some other stories, and sometimes I'm not on the whole show, even though I thought I was on the next day. It jumps around. So I couldn't find myself today. Even in my own apartment, I couldn't find myself.
Do you maintain friendships with the other actors on the show?
Yes, there are a few people that have been on the show for a long time. One particular adorable person is named Judy Evans, and she was so kind to me when I was out there. She helped me with my lines, and she has a pet chicken named Pie, and of course, anyone with an animal for me. And she's got 3 dogs and 3 horses, and she's a very giving, lovely human. So we reconnected from years ago, and then the other people, Lauren Koslow, of course, and Teo Penglis are the people I worked with, and they're all still there, and they're lovely, lovely people.
I think that people who work on soap operas are probably the hardest working people in the whole industry. And the public has really no idea how quickly you have to learn your lines and film with almost no rehearsal. It's astonishing.
It is. It's frightening. Usually, if somebody says, "How do you learn all those lines?" and I just say, "Fear." It's the only word that can explain how you get that stuff in your head.
Did it take you a while to adjust after
Yeah,
having been away?
it did. Again, fear. That's why Judy was so wonderful. She came every day and ran lines for me to help me, because I just stayed in a hotel room. I didn't go anywhere except for lunch and dinner because I was panic stricken. So it was really intense. I just want to tell you one quick thing. It was my last day of work. I came in and my dressing room suddenly had a bed in it, which it didn't have before. It had a couch. So I thought somebody very important must be coming in here because I don't get a bed. Well, guess who?
Who?
Dick Van Dyke.
Wow.
He's on the show now. He plays Drake Hoguston's father, John Black's father. He's adorable. I mean, I didn't meet him, but he's 99 and he's been on the show and he's absolutely adorable.
So next time you appear in Days, because I know you will, ask them for a bed.
I'm not 99 yet.
Yeah,
Not
but
long.
you might want to take a nap.
No, I don't want to nap. If you nap, see, for me, if I nap, I have to stay in touch. I have to be constantly in touch. Otherwise, I can't function. I have to be wide awake and on edge. panic stricken.
Now, when you were there, I believe the commissary was closed. There was no craft catering. Where did you get your meals?
This poor guy, I would say more, they ordered in for us. They did. But the crew had to go out and find food off the lot. I just feel so bad, you know. There anyway, that's the way it is right now.
You know, of all the soap operas out there, Days of Our Lives has been one of the most popular since it first debuted in 1965. What do you think accounts for the long-standing success of that show?
I don't know that I can answer that because I didn't know it then. I don't know really. Obviously, the characters they care that are on all the time, they cared a lot about, and the writing was obviously making people want to watch. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not really good at figure out why the longevity, except that obviously it was a good show and people cared about the characters. I I assume that was it.
Well, last time we talked, you told me that you believe that one of the reasons Vivian was so compelling was because you tried to find the humor in her.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Not so funny now. I mean,
well,
humorous maybe a little bit, but
but you had to create your own backstory because you weren't really given much to work with, and
yeah.
somehow you did it. Can you share any of that with us?
Well, I think I have a very perverse sense of humor, which not everybody appreciates, and why should they? And I think maybe in my head, I twist things that it might be the dialogue that's written, but somehow or other I find a twist in it or an attitude maybe, but that's kind of the way I am. And sometimes it's not appreciated, but that in real life I'm like that, which I'm maybe you kind of got that. So I don't think about it so much as it just comes out with a tone or an attitude or what I've what the line has done to me. When I spit it out, it comes out a little differently than on the page.
Well, it seems to work. So tell me, when you're not working, do you miss it?
No, I mean, I'm writing. I'm trying to put a little book together, which hopefully I'll be able to talk to you about it. It's called Hodgepodge, and it's my poems and my writing and my thoughts. So I work a lot on that. I'm a reader, so I like to read, and I go to the theater, and I have I think a fairly full life. I've always been that way. I mean, I never felt like if I'm an actor and I'm not working, then who am I? Which a lot of people, it's a hard profession. I think I got a lot of presents or gifts from my mother and her interests in things. So I just carry that with me all the time. So if I'm not working, I'm doing something else.
Now that the actors are all on strike, do you have any comments that you want to make about the strike?
I don't want to get political, but I do believe that this AI thing is very frightening. I saw glimpses of it on I think 60 Minutes the other day. To say that pretty soon they won't need actors, they can just create them, is terrifying. I mean, it's an art form, and these are artists. I'm going to get upset in a minute. Anyway, um, it's not fair, and it's greed, and it has to do with not just our industry. It's corporative greed. Let's face it. Everything is based on money in this country now, and I find it terribly sad. And on every level, not just the industry, but everywhere. So it's a little scary. It's a little scary, and I think that the strike is certainly legitimate, very legitimate. People are scared they're not going to even have an industry or a life or their own ability to make a living as an artist. That's insane.
Well, what do you think it's going to take for the studios not to use technology that they believe will make things less expensive for them and more efficient? How do we stop that?
I cannot answer that. We stop it by screaming, like in terms of whatever's going on in this country, which is pretty horrifying. It's about screaming. It's about what everybody's done through the centuries, which is to say, no, no, you can't do this to us.
You know, I don't think the public really understands what it's like for most actors to make a living. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about being an actor?
Well, I think I'm not sure really. Maybe some people feel it's just an indulgent profession. Some some people think that you're an actor, you must be rich or something. Uh,
Yes, many people say that.
it's absolutely so untrue. I mean, when you look at those things, you look up somebody's name and they say, how much are they worth? I mean, where do they get the numbers are hysterical. We know some people make a lot of money, which is okay, but I don't think they understand the struggle, the fear of not being able to, if it's a man or a woman with a family, having to provide as an actor. Some people are very lucky and some aren't. They just struggle and they try to make a living. But it's a hard one to explain to someone. You know, I don't know.
I think that the public needs to understand that if we lose the human content in movies, in
Mhm.
television shows, and possibly even in theater, we lose part of our own humanity.
Absolutely.
And that's what
Absolutely.
scares me about actors being replaced by machines. You know, it's one thing to have cartoons or
Right.
avatars,
Right.
but when we lose all human connection, we lose one of the great benefits of watching theater, movies, television, because we lose part of our own humanity because we don't see ourselves reflected in what's happening on the screen.
I agree. And I think it's unfortunately, I mean, my view of what's going on in the world is so frightening. We're losing a lot of things talking about, you know, our the climate, and you know, there's a lack of deep humanity going on. And there are other people fighting for it, and there are a lot of them. But we've sort of allowed everything to be taken over by corporate. And that's why I think this strike is important to say you need artists, you need writers, you need humanity. We don't need more machinery, but that's what everybody wants because they can make lots of money. Uh,
Well, behind those corporations are human beings. And
maybe.
you proved from your last appearance on our show that you have a voice that people listen to. Your interview went viral and was picked up by dozens of media outlets. And so I'm glad to have this opportunity to share my platform with you because people listen to what you say.
Oh dear. I try to not get as negative as sometimes I feel because we have to live day to day and you know celebrate the day, and I do believe in that. But when I sometimes watch the news or read the New York Times on Sunday, which was shattering, I I get very scared for this planet. I really do. Uh,
Now, you've been a professional actor since you were very young. You've seen a lot of changes in the entertainment industry. What do you miss the most about the way things used to be?
hmm. Well, one of the things that happened, which is actually very recent, is the COVID situation stopped people being able to go in and meet with, let's say, an actor with a director or a writer or something, where you get to bring in yourself and meet with a human being and they talk to you, and that's how you would get a job. Now you can't meet anybody. It's all on camera. You have to send in a little video of yourself. I find that very difficult. I don't think I'm gonna get work that way. That's a big change in the last 3 years where there's no meeting of the director and actor or whatever. I think that happened in a lot of areas, not just the theater or acting. We've lost a lack of communication one-on-one because now everybody's at home doing their work. They don't get to, you know, meet with their friends and their coworkers, and we've lost something there. Maybe it's going to come back. I hope.
I
But
sure hope so, because the pandemic, for all intents and purposes, is over. But a lot of what you're saying, this remote work, has continued because of the convenience.
yes, yes. Sometimes I'm talking to somebody and I say, because I hear a dog in the background or a child crying or something, and I know that they're working, you know, they're big American, wherever you call, they're at home, which sometimes is a good thing because then they have their children or whatever. But most of the time, there's isolation involved, and isolation is dangerous. As you go, in fact, when you get older and older, you see people who are so lonely from isolation, which is something we not should not do. You know, we have our alone time, but isolation is very dangerous.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Now, Louise, if I were to ask you, would you be able to pinpoint the most satisfying experience in your career so far?
No. It's too long a career. I mean, it's too, I don't know. I mean, there are, I would say maybe the first Broadway show I did, I don't even think it passed my mind at the time that I had just gotten a Broadway show at 21. And I walk in and there's George Abbott, who was, the king of Broadway, Mr. Abbott, and that I was working opposite Art Carney. But I was so young that it was like, oh, this is what you do. I have to be there at whatever time of. And when I look back, I think, oh my God, was I lucky? I mean, I never, and now I know how difficult it is, more so. But then I was like this, oh, well, then you go to the neighborhood playhouse, you study, and then you go to audition and you get it. I mean, what? I think that's a hugely memorable moment in my life that I didn't experience at the time or appreciate as much as I should have. And then it went on, and I had the luck of working with some amazing actors. And it's not just one thing; it's the whole memory of such luck and a gift for me. And I think that's why I'm sort of somewhat sane. I don't feel, it's so many different things that, just compiled of many memories. And I suddenly, the first day I walked in and I'm looking at George C. Scott,
Wow.
and I'm on stage with him and he's kissing me in the scene. And I'm like, ah! It's Charles Boyer, who took me for dinner several times. I mean, these are these wonderful, and also a lot of my traveling, not just the theater, but traveling abroad and going to countries that I fell in love with and being able to do that. I mean,
Okay, so now you've opened the door. I can't resist. When are we going to get that memoir?
oh, Harvey,
I mean, what a
I know,
life you've
I'm
had,
getting nagged
Louise.
about it. I
I
know. I
want to
mean,
read that memoir.
but doesn't everybody do a memoir? I mean, which is fine. I'm glad people do it. I guess I'm being lazy about it, or that's why I start with this idea of this little book called Hodgepodge, Poems and Thoughts by Louise Sorel. It's like a little book of little pieces I've written, but it's not a memoir.
Well, I
And
think you could put that in the memoir. But, the thing is, when you're gone, those stories are going to go with you. And you have lived through an era of show business and worked with some of the most legendary artists. And I just think it would be so compelling and so fascinating if
well,
you could tell your story. And I may just have to come down to New York and stay there for like 3 weeks and get you
okay,
to just,
ouch.
and then I'll just draw it all out of you. So you don't have to write it. I'll just interview you and keep asking questions until you get it all down.
That would work. That would do. I'll take you up on that. The thing is, everybody I know writes a memoir. So I had this idea, which is not a memoir, but it is. It's a one-woman show. God help me that I have thoughts of doing that. But the one-woman show, I'm so in love with this idea, is that it's called My Life with Dogs and Other Men. That's my memoir. And the stage curtain opens, and on the stage are 10 different large cutouts of all the dogs I've owned, 10 of them on the stage. And when people come into the theater, usually you hear music before a play. Guess what you'll be hearing? Barking. So
Oh,
when people come into the theater, they're going to hear dogs barking. And then I come out with a big wagon on which there are all my memorabilia. And I'm telling a story about my life, which is like a memoir, but it's not, and then I did this and then I did that. It's telling other stories. And in the middle of that, remembering a moment with Walter Pidgeon, which I think I mentioned to you, a moment with Boyer, a moment with George C. Scott, and sort of putting it in there, but not just, and then I did, and then I did, and then I did. So it's more of a whole life.
Louise, you're onto something. I mean, B. Arthur did that. Elaine Stritch did that.
Yeah,
I
she
love
did.
that idea.
But she was Stritch. I'm just, I think I'm stuck on this visual of all the dogs on the stage and the memoir and this big wagon with all my pieces of my life. And that's that's what if I write a book or if I do the show, it'll be called My Life with Dogs and Other Men.
Well, I'm going to be there opening night. You know,
Okay.
and I know I will be sitting with the most wonderful Lori Towers.
No.
And we will be, and her husband, John Pietero, we will all be there cheering you on. Tell me, do you ever get asked by young aspiring actors for advice about how they can break into the business?
No, I don't know any. I mean, I live in a kind of quiet little separate world now, and I'm not I don't know what I would say, but no, I haven't been asked that question.
Do you think that the way you came up in the business is relevant now to the way things are done?
Oh, yes. I think it's much more difficult now for young people. I mean, I really worry about I think, "Oh my God, they can't get agents." The agents are, because of what's going on with work, the agents are not seeing people. It's very difficult, very difficult. I don't think it was that difficult then. You
When
know,
you were starting out, did you have a plan B, or did you just know this is all you would ever do?
honest to God, if somebody had said to me when I left home at 18, I thought, "Well, I'm gonna go to the neighborhood playhouse, and act, whatever," and I don't know if honest to God, it sounds ridiculous. I don't know if I gave anything any thought. I just went, and then I went to an audition, and then I got the job, and I didn't have a plan. I just did it. I don't know how to explain that.
Well, I
Yeah.
do. I think it's destiny.
Well, it is, but I can't say that I know there are actors who, plot, which is good, they figure out what they're going. I don't know, I went from high school theater to college theater to auditioning for the neighborhood playhouse as a mime. I got the job. I mean, I got the scholarship to the playhouse as a mime. Figure that one out. I wasn't speaking, and they gave me a scholarship. Anyway, and I just went along with it. It seemed that that was what I was supposed to do.
Well,
It's
Louise, I'm so grateful you took the time to come back on our show. It means the world to me and to your
so sweet.
fans. Thank you so much for giving me this interview.
Thank you. You're just a doll. You really are. You're just the best.
You know, I adore you. I can't wait to see you when I'm back in New York. And when you do write that book, will you please come back?
If I'm alive, I'll come back.
You will be. Our guest has been the wonderful and brilliant actress, Louise Sorel. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to my producer, Steve Silver, my director of programming, Deborah Batsafin, my production assistant, Rose Apuzzo, my PR director, Lori Towers, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you, Harvey.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.